Hello and welcome to Not All Fire. I'm Jude Evans.
And I'm Joe Hart.
I deliberately did that as you were taking a sip then. I hope you
Just,
noticed.
I know it was on purpose, Jude. I knew you'd do it. I'm having that sip of tea. You can't stop
Once a
me.
waitress, always a waitress. If I don't come up to you and ask how's your food doing when you've got a mouthful of food, I'm lost.
That's real, isn't it? You're going to reveal that because I'm certain that happens in every restaurant I've ever been to. Biggest
It's
bite of
not.
food, they come up to you and say, "How's the food?"
You can't complain if you've got a mouthful of food. It's not necessarily strictly, but it does always make us laugh whenever we used to do it. So there's lots of things in waitressing that make us laugh. Anyway, how are you? How's the jet lag coming along?
I'm all right. I'm late for this morning's recording, aren't I? I have to address that. We are
Oh,
Sunday morning,
only
aren't
an
we, doing
hour.
it this week? I was an hour late. I slept in. Do you know what? Yeah, it's a bit of a shocker for me, really, what's happened. So I was all right traveling back Monday. I think I covered this last week, didn't I? I won't do it to death, but I was traveling and then I was straight back into work Tuesday morning. So I thought, I'll catch up. I'll be all right. I was a bit tired throughout the week, a bit behind the eyes. And then I got to Friday night and I didn't get home till about 11 because I was on site. I had dinner with a colleague, site visit, drive home. So I went to bed at 11 o'clock Friday night and I woke up on Saturday at 4 p.m. I just knocked out 17 hours in bed.
Oh,
And I woke up,
sleep. Honestly, to sleep for there's absolutely no way my bladder would allow me to sleep for 17 hours. I really, really wouldn't.
thankfully mine did, but what happened was my body just shut down. My body was like, "Oh, we're done now, are we?" With the 2 weeks of travel and stress and mental, just everything. I had a load of like stressful stuff alongside with where I came back to the UK and I was like, "Here's a load of problems for you, Joe." So my body just shut down. So I was like, "Bloody hell, I'll just sleep for the whole weekend." So it's Sunday morning now, and I've managed to reset a bit, but today's still a rest day for me, really.
Yeah,
So I'm not doing too bad, although I am apologies, I'm late for
it's
this
fine.
morning's recording.
I've been doing some pottering and bits and pieces of. I've spent quite a lot of Friday driving, and pretty much most of next week I'm literally client site, drive for 4 hours, client site, drive for 4 hours. So
Mm.
I'm doing like I did the other week where I did 20 counties in 3 days. I think I'm doing similar because certainly I'm certainly in Exeter on Tuesday afternoon, so there's going to be a bit of driving around. But it's just how some weeks are. Some weeks you're kind of like
Yeah,
chilled and it's fine. And I've got lots of kind of short site visits to do this week, so
yeah,
two
yeah.
clients a day kind of job. So it made more sense to record on a Sunday morning because we can both be slightly less asleep or slightly less driving.
It does, doesn't it? Your schedule, Jude, sometimes sounds like a sponsored charity event. 20 counties in 3 days. You sound like one of these people that strapped a fridge to their back and are
Oh,
marching around. But yeah,
well,
busy
yeah.
one.
I'm in Tewkesbury. I'm driving to Tewkesbury Monday evening, and then I'm in Tewkesbury and Exeter on Tuesday, and then I'm driving Tuesday evening from Exeter to Guildford, and then on Wednesday. At the moment, it's only Guildford and Woking, but it might be Guildford, Newbury, and Woking, and then I'm off to Birmingham, and then I'm
Oh,
in
right.
Birmingham for the day, and then I'm down to Essex, and then I'm in central London on Friday, which is a surprise. A surprise visit, should we say? A pleasant surprise visit to go into central London on a Friday lunchtime, Friday morning, Friday lunchtime, and then I'm home. But then the following week, I'm literally static in one site for a week.
Oh,
So
nice. Yeah.
yeah, it's sometimes it's just how it works. So yes, all over the shop. But
Very nice. Well, we've
yeah,
already this morning, before we came on air, covered off Joe and Jude's birdwatching weekly catch up because I'm in my conservatory this
we
week.
have.
The reason I'm in here is because I'm looking out at the garden. I've not fed the birds for 2 weeks since I've not been here, and it was all very barren. So I've just fed the birds and they've all come flocking back in. So I'm sat here with my trusty bird book. We're talking about, or we were talking about the birds we get in our gardens. It's back to
Absolutely.
normality, isn't it? This is my standard Sunday morning. Sat in the conservatory, feed the birds, a little bit of work, bit of life admin. All's
Nice.
well with the world. Yeah.
Good, good, good. It's always it's do you know it's surprising even though you were working when you were away, it still takes a bit of time to get back into the routine. It's like when you go on holiday and you come back to 300 emails and you're like, oh,
Yeah, well, I was chatting to a mate. Right, this is the last rant about how tired I am. Then we'll do some fire. But
did
he
some
said,
proper
"What were you up
work.
to? What were you up to while you were away?" Because I think he thought I was sat on the beach, and I was like, "Well, for 10 days in a row, I set an alarm for 2 a.m., which was 9 a.m. in the UK or 10 a.m. in the UK, whatever. I worked for 4 hours. Then I went to the gym at what was 6 a.m. in California, but lunchtime in the UK. Then I went back, worked another 4 hours. Then I went for breakfast. Then I did 10 hours of field work. And then I went, had some dinner and went to bed. And he's like, do you not feel like that probably warrants a bit of a recovery? Because that feels a bit like going into battle and just working non-stop. So I think he was right when I was ranting about how tired I am. So yeah, nearly there. I'll be right. And I've got a nice quiet week this week, to be fair. I'm doing a cool thing on Tuesday, which I've not told you about. I'll tell you about now. I'm going over to view or observe a salvage operation by the fire service in a heritage building.
Oh, how
So
fun.
yeah, I did a webinar a few weeks ago for the IFE on heritage safety,
Yeah.
and off the back of that, got an invite from the National Trust alongside Lancs Fire and Rescue to go and observe their salvage operation of a place really local to me, which is nice. I get to literally just down the road.
Brilliant.
So I'm excited for that. Rest of the week I'm at my desk, so be all right.
Oh, it's nice to do that every now and again then. It feels like sometimes you just feel like you just need to just sit at your desk and just knock out some emails, knock out a few reports, and just catch up on life. So
That's it.
it's good.
That is it.
Yeah. So I've got some bits and pieces to talk about this week, obviously. So I'm going to start first of all. I must remember I'm on being video, so not to just wave a pen around at you like I normally do. So we spoke last week about the fact that the ISO had just created a new category of fire called L. And I wanted to clarify that because I've seen loads and loads of people posting about it on LinkedIn and on the internet. So basically, I wanted to just explain that the ISO has defined class L for lithium fires, lithium ion fires, as it's a hazard category. So it's not a fire extinguisher class. And it's not it's not a NFPA standard, it's not a British standard, it's not a European standard. It's literally just a category that says this is a hazard. So like we have class A, B, C, D, we don't have E, we have F. It's another class like that, and so therefore you would have a fire extinguisher that would be aligned with that would be able to attack that type of fire in like when we had the category F fires. I quite like describing the difference between class B fires and class F fires as explaining the difference between I like to use a flaming sambuca as the example.
Oh yeah, yes, please.
I know, it's great because everybody sits there and goes, oh, they've either seen somebody set themselves on fire with a flaming sambuca, or they might have had one in the past. With a flame, when you have an alcohol, it's a class B fire because it's the vapor that's on fire. So you can sit there with a shot glass of sambuca in your hand and you can light it, and the flames are on the top, and you can hold the sambuca. Class B fire because it's not the liquid that's hot. If you have a class F fire, which is your deep fat fryer fires, or deep fat fryer hazard, it's the oil that's hot as well because you get the fire from internally. So you can't stand and hold a shot glass full of deep fat fryer oil when it's on fire because actually it's the liquid that's burning.
That's incredible. I've never heard of that. So you couldn't do a shot of cooking oil, but you could do a shot of sambuca.
Absolutely, even though the sambuca is still on, they're both still on fire.
Yeah. Oh, that's really nice. I like that. I've honestly never heard that. B for buka, F for frying oil or something.
Fryers.
That's all I remember.
Yeah. So, but it's a really useful way of when people sort of sit there and go, but aren't they both the same fire? And it's like, well, no, they're not, because it's the actual material itself that's hot and burny. But we've all seen people set themselves on fire. I mean, it's great when people do, in the nicest possible way, when people with beards do flaming shots of sambuca, if they don't put the fire out properly, and then literally you just set your face on fire, which is never not funny. So
agreed. Thankfully, I think my days of flaming sambucas are gone, and I'm just bearded now, and I don't have a flaming sambuca appetite anymore.
Oh, it's disgusting. Sambuca is horrible. So yes, so basically it's very much and I've seen quite a lot of people saying you've got to be really, really careful with the type of extinguishant that said, like if you have an extinguishant in a fire extinguisher that says it's compatible for a class F fire or a lithium ion fire. Like for a lot of the metal fire extinguishers we have, it's for things like swarf and things like, so you've got titanium and magnesium type fire extinguishers, which I think we touched on last week a little bit. But you have to have the material that's on fire open to the elements, open to the air, because that's how you get the extinguishant on. So the problem with lithium ion battery fires is if the lithium ion isn't exposed, then the extinguishant doesn't get in there.
Of course, yeah, that makes sense.
So it's still a real challenge. And in fact, actually, when I was at the health, safety and welfare show, wellbeing show last week in Manchester, there was a battery fire stand. They were doing a special battery fire stand, and I didn't get a chance to go and have a look at it, but they had the fire extinguishers that you put over, the fire blankets that a lot of people are starting to sell for putting over vehicles. And I've had a couple of clients who work in high-end vehicles. They've got some of these, and I'm never really comfortable, because if you've got something that's about to go into, if you've got something that's a lithium ion battery that's about to go into fire, then it happens so fast that have you got time to be able to safely put some form of fire blanket over the top of it? Who's going to be using these fire blankets? Is it for the fire service? Is it? And also, one of my clients who had these, it's a fully sprinklered building. So I was like, if you put that fire blanket over the top of a expensive vehicle that is on fire, and the sprinklers activate, you're not really getting to, although you're cooling it down and you're stopping some of the smoke, you're not really getting into the material that's actually on fire. So how's that going to work? So it's an interesting kind of thing about how we tackle some of these types of fires.
Yeah, you're right, because thinking of an electric vehicle, the fire is likely to have started in the drivetrain underneath, if that's where the batteries are stored. So how do you actually, I suppose the blanket will contain it to an extent, but isn't really smothering it as a fire blanket over a cooking pan would. You put it directly onto the fire source, don't you?
Yeah, so you're not smothering it. So is this just going to sit there? It's just going to sit there and burn until it burns? But then how do you then try and tackle the fire? All you're doing is kind of mitigating the problem a little bit, I think. So
Well, I have a question on extinguishers to throw at you then, if you don't mind me chucking one at you live.
Go for it.
Because it's come up for me from a client recently. Well, kind of from a client. We're sort of chatting to someone about it, because we do a bit of extinguishers in my business, but it's not our core business. And it was about the extinguishers being safe for use on electrics, which I've always considered, and I think this is a gap in my knowledge. Well, I know it's a gap in my knowledge about. I've always considered that's the extinguishant we care about, not so much the extinguisher itself. But I've become aware now of something called a dielectric test, which is something that's done as part of what the person I was speaking to believed was a servicing thing. So you would check to make sure it's still isolated or whatever. But the thing that I would want to ask you for you to explain a bit more, if you would, is what that test is, and how do we determine an extinguisher is safe for use on electrics? Is it the unit itself, or is it the extinguishant? Is it what's the story behind that?
Well, it's a bit like a fire door, in the fact that the manufacturer's got test data that says, I have tested my fire extinguisher with this amount of stuff in, and it's got a hose that is this long, and it's got a nozzle that is this type. And I would say probably 90% of the reasons that, in fact, probably more than that, the reason that your fire extinguisher is safe to be used around electrics is because of the type of nozzle that you have on there. Because what you have loads of different types of nozzles. You've got spray nozzles, you've got jet nozzles. A lot of the time on foam fire extinguishers, we use a spray nozzle. In the Middle East, they use lots of jet nozzles, which means it goes further, but you don't get the same kind of spread. When they test a fire extinguisher, they build a rack of wood that's a certain size, and you've got a certain amount of time to put it out in. When we're looking at things like, will it conduct, if you use it near electrical equipment, will it conduct electricity back to you? It's very much a case of the manufacturer will have done a test with that particular nozzle, which will probably be a spray, so that you don't get a steady stream of substance going to the electrics, which can come back and affect you. About, how many years ago did they change this? Now, I've not serviced fire extinguishers since 2018, 2019, which is when I sold that part of my business. And they've just changed the standard. I think it's probably changed again since, but they just changed the standard, I want to say maybe 2014, that said, if you buy a particular manufacturer's fire extinguisher, and there's lots of them, there's Jacktone and there's Chubb and there's Britannia, and there's all the different manufacturers who actually make them. They've all tested their fire extinguishers with the same equipment on them.
Mm-hmm.
When you service a fire extinguisher, kind of what we used to do back in the day is you'd be like, oh, someone's bent the pin, I'll just whack another pin in. It doesn't really matter. As long as the pin comes in and out of the fire extinguisher, it's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, the hose has got a split in it, which happens when people drive into things. We'll just replace the hose or replace the O-ring with something. You could get like standard replacement parts from all sorts of different people. So
Yeah.
all of the major suppliers would supply you with like O-rings or with hoses or with nozzles. And what the standard changed and said was that if you are working on a Jackstone fire extinguisher, on a Britannia fire extinguisher, on a Tommy Glover fire extinguisher, who make the ones most of the ones which are, if you're Thomas Glover, if you're working on any of those types of fire extinguisher, you have to only use the O-rings, the hoses, the nozzles, the spray heads, and a lot of that was to do with people would swap out the ends of the hose, so the bit where the stuff finally comes out with, because those are the bits that get cracked or damaged. And so somebody might, for example, if you've got a dry powder, it would just be an open hole, an open holed tube.
Yeah.
If it's a water fire extinguisher, it might be a single point jet, or it might be a spray if it had additives in, and if it's a foam, it might be a big, like a rose like you have on the end of a garden watering can.
Sure. Yeah.
And people would swap them out for the wrong ones. And I literally can't. If I had a pound for every time I came across a foam that had a powder hose, a powder nozzle, or vice versa and vice versa. Waters would invariably have a foam end on it, because of course the hose is the same and the ends are the same size, so you can interchange what you've got. But of course the problem is then if you've turned around and said this can be used near electrics, and you've put the wrong end on your fire extinguisher, and all of a sudden you've got a stream of water that's coming out, or stream of foam that's coming out, and you're near an electrical source, all of a sudden you haven't got the protection that you would have if it had the right end on.
Gotcha. Okay. So the testing to allow you to say an extinguisher is safe for use on electrics is the whole unit together. It could be any extinguisher, including water, because we're taught water and electrics don't mix, but it could do, because in that instance, it's not a steady stream of water, it's broken up, so it's a spray. If somebody comes along later and swaps it out and isn't aware of that, you could end up with, legitimately, it says safe for use on electrics, but because of the maintenance, it's been made unsafe. Someone whacks that on a power socket, and then they find themselves, presumably the electricity can pass up the water into the metal body of the extinguisher and give you a shock. Do you know that answers it? That's perfect. So presumably this testing then, to answer the question I've been given, is the testing is not done by a servicer as part of maintenance. It's the manufacturer that does that for their product and says, as long as these components are in place, this is safe for use in electrics. Okay.
And that's the requirement of the service engineer. And I'm not going to diss fire extinguisher companies, because there are a lot of very, very good fire extinguisher companies around. Like there are a lot of very good fire door installer companies around, as we often discuss. The problem is that if you have a service engineer who either doesn't really understand, or who doesn't have the right part or something, and something gets swapped out, then that's when you have an issue. Because a lot of them, the waters, the ones that say, because a lot of the time they won't say you can use on electrics, they'll say you can use near electrics.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So, because then if you accidentally catch a little bit of water onto the electrics, you're not going to die.
Sure.
Always a bad thing. So yeah, it's kind of that really. And so it's as long as you've serviced the fire extinguisher as per the manufacturer instructions. And for anybody who's ever been a fire extinguisher service engineer, service technician, there's like 27, 28 steps that you're supposed to follow, and you're supposed to take the hose on, you're supposed to change the O-ring, you're supposed to do this, and you're supposed to do that. And not everybody does all of those steps.
Yeah, I have become aware of that. That's why I'm in the fire extinguisher world a little bit at the minute, because a client has said, I don't think we're getting everything we need from our service.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, if somebody comes onto your site and it takes them 30 seconds to service a fire extinguisher, they might not have done all the steps they might need to do.
Yeah, agreed. Oh, cool.
And I know how many. Yeah, I mean, I know how many fire extinguishers I used to be able to service in a day, but a lot of the time for me, it was because we tended to have clients who had a lot of fire extinguishers on one site, so I wouldn't just go to a shop and do 2. I would go to a school and do 90 to 100, or I'd go somewhere where I'd have 300 extinguishers, because then you're not dry, you're just on one site. And I know I can do like I don't know, 75, 80 in a day before I start going, did I change the O-ring? Did I write the label? Did I weigh it?
Sure.
Because
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
doing the same steps over and over and over again.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you, Jude. I learned something there. That's helpful.
That's what we're here for.
I like it.
I thought we could also talk about the Stardust Fire, the Stardust nightclub in Dublin, because it was the 45th anniversary on February 13th, so Friday last week. It was the 45th anniversary. And that's a really interesting fire because it took until 2009 for the first full case to be concluded, and then they changed their mind about it just slightly more recently.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who don't know, the Stardust was a nightclub in Artane, and I absolutely am sure I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. In Dublin, I'm not going to try and pronounce it in any other way. 48 people died in a fire. And it's a classic nightclub. It's one of the classic nightclubs fires. We talk about the station, we talk about Stardust nightclub as the two biggest nightclub fires where lots and lots of people died. So 13th February 1981, 841 people were attending a Valentine's disco at this nightclub. About 1:30 in the morning, they said they felt it suddenly got really warm in there. But it had been cool before, and all of a sudden it got really, really warm. So everybody just assumed the heating system had just kicked in. But then they started to see a fire in the west corner of the disco hall, and then they could smell smoke. So people didn't. Then they saw fires in different places, and they didn't quite work out what was going on. So a bouncer was told of the fire, so he went to the front and started to call fire brigade. That was at about 1:40, and then a couple of minutes later, somebody activated the fire alarm. Flammable decorations, flammable furniture, again, as ever. A couple of people tried to tackle it with portable fire extinguishers, but the source of the fire wasn't actually internally within the club. They had suddenly it grew really, really fast. Partial ceiling collapse, lots of thick black smoke, rapidly spread across the ceiling. People were running into toilets thinking they were the fire exits. They were trying to take refuge in various places around the place. They locked fire exits for security measures, as we've talked about many, many times, as people used to do. Because the fire service got loads and loads of calls, 4 fire appliances attended. They realised they needed to have BA. They realised it was that kind of attack. They opened some fire exits, and they just kept finding bodies within the exit routes that were basically burns, and they assumed people were basically already dead. They tried incredibly hard, but yeah, 48 people lost their lives, 214 people were injured.
Wow.
There was a massive inquest, and I mean, there have been films made about this fire. There have been so many documentaries made about this fire. Originally, they thought it was arson. They thought it was a deliberate fire. But in 2009, the conclusion of arson was overturned, placing the blame on the venue owners, because it was alleged that they were storing, I want to say they were storing cooking oil, and they were storing lots of combustible materials in a room on the first floor across from where the disco was.
Yeah.
They just couldn't, bless you. They just couldn't identify it. They couldn't confirm it was arson because they couldn't work out where the origin of the fire originally was. And in 2024, the jury found that the deaths of the 48 victims should be recorded as an unlawful killing. But it did bring about an awful lot of change, certainly in Ireland, massive changes to building and fire safety regulations in Ireland. But there was a huge thing about the fact that everybody at the time was like, it's the owners because the owners were doing this, and but there was no proof, so they sort of really weren't 100% sure.
Yeah, and of course it was. I was thinking about the date as you were talking there, but it was a Valentine's disco, wasn't it? That's what it was, and hence the February 13th, 14th date. But yeah, Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely horrible case study, but one of those essentials. You
Yeah.
know, we have a list of, we must all know Summerland and Grenfell and Stardust and Crazy Horse nightclub and all those things.
Mm.
We had a CPD on it just before Christmas. Well, when our team came together, we always we try to get together for a meal, but also try and do something. And one of my team, Sol, put together a presentation on it. So I've learned a lot about it recently. It's a horrible, horrible case study. The thing I always being a sort of scientist, I always leap into the science of it, but never seek to overlook the horrible human tragedy element of it.
Yeah.
So I'm not skipping over that. That's all goes without saying. From the scientific side, the investigation afterwards is one of the most interesting investigations that
Took
I'm
so
aware
many
of.
years. So many
Yeah,
years.
yeah. And the video of it, of the, because I think the BRE did some investigations and they built a full scale mock up of it. And the video with the ashtray is the one that's always the most famous. And I trust we can put it on screen as I'm talking, either the video or a still from it, where they built the banked seating and the fire at the back, and you can see the cushion of the seat in front starting to smoke and then pop, and then the ashtray at the front, even though it's remote from the fire, just by radiant heat, it ignites, and we start to see flashover phenomenon for the first, or certainly an early example of it, caught on video and in a lab. It's fascinating, and I have a feeling there is a book. There is a book that's written, and it's been recommended to me so many times. It's on my list of things to read, and I forget the name of it. Again, it might end up on screen when I'm talking, but apparently that's an incredible book. Again, recommended to me by a colleague at RCPD before Christmas. So yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely been a movie made about it, and there's definitely been a couple of documentaries made about it. I can't remember the name of the film. It'll probably be something like Stardust.
Yeah.
Fire or something like that. So,
and by the magic of post-production, it will no doubt appear on screen now.
I totally trust you, Joe, because you're the one doing this at the moment.
I don't do post-production. I don't know how that works. It's far too complicated for me. But yeah, we can get that up, I'm certain. And again, the book and the documentary, I'm actually not aware of a film. That's news to me, but they've been recommended to me so many times that I've just not quite got around to doing. So yeah, we'll have to find them for sure.
Yeah, so I'm definitely sure. You were going to tell me about there's been a newsletter, a call for information from the FIA and the IFE, so the Fire Industry Association and the Institute of Fire Engineers, Institution of Engineers, who've asked for publications of everybody's BS 8414 test data. Explain to the listeners what BS 8414 test data is and why this is really quite an interesting thing to for people to do.
Do you know, that's a good, I'm glad you poked me for that, because I would have launched into the news article with and skipping over 8414 and what it is. So I'll fill that knowledge gap and then we'll hit the story right. So BS 8414 is a British standard test, BS being British standard, 8414 being the name of the standard that describes it, for carrying out large-scale testing of external wall systems. And an 8414 test rig, the actual apparatus, is, I think it's 9 meters tall. It kind of replicates 3 stories, and it's like an L shape. It's quite a big piece of test apparatus. And at the base of the test, you have a wooden crib that's sat within a bit of a recess. And the idea is you ignite the crib, and the fire shoots out into the internal angle, and then spreads up the inside of the angle and hits both walls. Again, on screen, if you're watching this rather than listening, you'll see an image of it as I'm talking that help contextualize it. If you are listening and not watching, hopefully that description is useful. But broadly, it's a very, very large scale, not full scale. There's a differentiation between those two terms. So it's large scale test.
It's a lot of the time it's corners, isn't it?
It is, and it is that importantly, it's got an L shape. The test rig is designed to replicate the kind of worst case of where you get a fire going up an external wall, right? And basically what you do is you get an external wall system, piece of cladding, and however that's built up, on both faces of that internal angle of the external wall, ignite the crib and take various measurements. And the only measurements you take are temperature reading. So there are thermocouples at strategic points throughout the space, every 2.5 meters from memory, I think they are. And you stop the test if it reaches the top of the rig, that's classed as a fail. And you take observations throughout the test. So the only real output data-wise is temperature. And then after the test, you extinguish it, you observe it for another half hour after the test or something. You measure the percentage burn areas and stuff like that. And that's what 8414 does. Now, what you do with the data after that is the important part. There used to be the standard BR135, which was a BRE document about how to use that data and classify cladding off the basis of an 8414 test. Without going into that world, essentially what the testing is cladding system on a large scale rig, ignite it, test takes an hour, plus some pre and post observations, and you get a load of graphs and visual observations of what happened during that test. And obviously, if you do two different cladding systems, you can compare one to the other. This one, the temperature was X, this one, the temperature was Y, plot them both on a graph. Afterwards, this cladding had 33% burn area, this one had 20%, so you can start to benchmark against one another. So that's 8414. Now, the story that's come out this week, or the call that's come out this week, is two industry bodies, the IFE and the FIA, asking for or calling for test data from BS 8414 to be made publicly available from previous tests. So essentially saying, if you've had a test done for 8414, it may well be in the public interest that you share that data and that's available for use by others in industry, whether it's consultants or architects or other sponsors, whoever it is, make it available. We don't know as an industry how many 8414 tests have ever been carried out, because it's a commercial enterprise. You know, you could pay and go and get one done, but there is probably thousands of tests and thousands of pieces of data, tens of, if not hundreds of thousands of pieces of data out there, kind of in people's inboxes and on desktops. And basically, these two organisations have called for them to be made public where available. That brings us up to where we're at, I think. And this only came out a couple of days ago, didn't it? About midweek. Yeah. So there's a few. This is multifaceted, because as an engineer, I'd love to have access to all that data, because it would allow me to do assessments of cladding systems that are existing. So I have a lot of external wall remediation projects and new builds, and often I find myself having to say to the client, can you get some testing done? Do you have data? Can you go to the manufacturer and say, can you release this data to us? And often they say no or whatever. So as an engineer, it's a really valuable resource if that becomes available. As a realist, and as someone who is a bit commercial, because I run a business and I have a testing lab, you know, as part of my organization, I'm not hiding that fact. I don't see the incentive for some people to share that, because an 8414 test costs over £100,000 to do and has done for many, many years. Do you know the first person that ever bought a Tesla? Do you know who that was? It was BMW. It wasn't a private buyer. As soon as they came off the production line, the first customer, allegedly, I heard this story years ago, was BMW, because they didn't buy it to drive it. They bought it to pull it apart and see how it works.
How it was built.
Yeah, and it's quite common, I think, that pre-orders for new products are often by your competitor rather than your most loyal customers, right? So, you know, BlackBerry buying the first iPhone, for example, is another classic.
What shiny things have they invented? Yeah, what shiny things have they invented that we need to now jump on the bandwagon for?
Yeah. And there's a commercial advantage to this. Now, obviously, this will become the big sticking point on this, I expect. I've paid this isn't me saying me, but somebody in this role play situation. I, as a sponsor, have paid loads of money for this test to be done for the benefit of my project, or I'm a manufacturer and I've done this to help develop my product so that it can get better and I can learn from, the development piece. And now I have to just give it away. My investment is thereby lost. Testing houses may well be thinking the same. Oh, if someone's come and done a test, that's a private contract between me and that the sponsor and myself as the testing house. And legitimately, other people needing the same data would otherwise come and pay me to rerun the test. And now I'm going to lose that potential revenue stream. And then the last point on it is me kicking back into being me as someone who has a testing house. I'm doing some testing at the moment for a client, and I was with them a few weeks ago. We've come up with the test protocol. I'm doing the test in the next couple of weeks, right? It's an existing building. It's some stuff we're doing. It's not really commercially sensitive. But nevertheless, I said at the end of the test, what do you want to do with all of the stuff that's left? Because you're going to send me a load of materials from your building. Are you happy for me to chuck them in the skip? Do you want me to pay to dispose of them in a certain way? They said, we'll come and take it away.
Wow.
Which is common. That is what happens,
Yeah.
right? That they say, do you know what, at the end of it, we don't really want our products and our materials left in a skip because we don't know who's going to go through your skip. I've said I've got a camera and that, but regardless of that, they've said we want ownership of that chain of custody wise. Once we've done some
Wow.
tests on that material, we will dispose of it and we'll take it away. And actually, what they're going to do, which is really fair, is they're going to send it off to another lab to have some forensic assessment done post fire, having done the tests. So
Ooh.
the fire testing world, I know firsthand, is quite closed door, and it's partly commercial, it's partly to protect that data. And I just think if you called up a testing house and said, all these tests you've done, are you happy to release them? There's no world in which the answer would be yes. There is a lot of decision,
Yeah.
and it's a big call for people to do. So yeah, it's an interesting one, and I can see where it comes from as an engineer. I'd love to access that
Yeah.
data, but the logistics and the reality of it as someone who has paid for tests and gets paid to do tests, it feels like a tricky one to sell. I'm not sure how that'll work. So
I
there's
mean, I
more
have
to
to
come on
say,
this, I'm sure,
well,
but it's an
yeah,
interesting one.
when I saw the email come out, I looked at it and just went, "Oh, I don't know if anyone's going to buy into that."
No, no, it'd be an absolute treasure trove, don't get me wrong. One thing that I've done, and I'm really hoping as we're chatting that if I get Teams messages whilst we're on air, they don't show up on screen. I trust they don't because
I
I've got a
don't think they
colleague
do.
who's sent me a lot of swear words for a Sunday morning, and it's because he's doing some CFD modelling, so he's checking in and out on it
Oh,
just to say. And he's just giving me. I said, "Oh, give me a little update," and every other word is a swear word at the minute.
no, it
Uh,
hasn't come up. So you're fine.
Good. I now know what the F stands for in CFD, thanks to Joel.
Thanks,
But
Joel.
we we've been, and the C as well. Actually, I've learned what that means as well. What that stands for. But we've done some CFD modelling of 8414 tests as a research piece a couple of
Oh,
years
wow.
ago, and it's quite hard to get hold of this data. So what we ended up doing was using the data for the Grenfell Tower cladding because it was in the public inquiry, so it was
Oh,
public,
yes, of course.
so it was publicly accessible. Because what we were interested in doing is building that rig, the 8414 rig in CFD, and then running the test to see how well the computer can replicate the real life test. Because there would be a huge benefit to be able to say, actually, these tests cost £100,000. They take weeks to set up. It's a long lead in from testing houses.
But you
Can we
can
do
do it
it
with CFD.
computationally?
Yeah.
And can we get a similar result? Now, we had some successes, some failures along the way. It was kind of, we're still kicking away with it. And that just emphasized to me at the time how hard it is to get hold of 8414 data because we could
Yeah.
only find it through a public source.
But
So
even
if it were
things
to become
like,
available, it'd be huge.
yeah, even things like friend of the show, Alec, when we've gone to him,
Hmm.
when I've gone to him for information, when I first started getting to talk to him and to get test information about their test details, it was all
Yeah,
like, oh, you can only have this bit, but you can't have that bit, and this is confident. And
yeah, yeah,
now we're a bit more friendly. Then there's there's less trauma in trying to get information, but it's that whole thing about sometimes you've really got to earn trust of the people who are doing the tests that you're not
yeah,
going to then just go, I'm just going to whack it on the internet.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it's a big call that's come out. I don't think that's the end of the story. I think it'll
No.
continue to be kicked back and forth, and we'll see what comes from it. Um,
Yeah.
the thing I was pondering this when I was driving home on Friday night because someone had sent it to me on Friday afternoon. A listener had sent it to me actually to talk about in this week's episode, and I was thinking it's a bit of a Pandora's box because if we do this for 8414, do we then end up with who's next? Is it the fire
Yeah.
door industry that starts saying release your
Yeah.
data, and then does it
Release your
become
data.
fire stopping, and then does it become intumescent paint? All of the test data becomes publicly available. Now, personal opinion for a second, I'm a big advocate for things being in the public domain. I personally believe every fire risk assessment in Britain should be public domain. I think you should be able to log onto a council page and see the
Yeah.
FRAs. That'd get people doing actions, wouldn't it?
Oh,
But
getting people to do them properly as well. Yes, that would be very,
yeah,
very interesting. Peer
but
review
then it's
everybody else's fire risk assessments. Oh my God.
yeah, and I think that you should be able to log on to any shop or cafe and see if they're upholding fire safety. So you have the right to say, I'm not going to use that supply or that place because, yeah. Anyway, that is personal opinion. The only problem is if you do that, it does kill a private sector commercial industry because people just won't be doing tests anymore. So the test now will be sat there going, all right, well, who needs one? You go, I don't need it anymore. It's all online.
On the internet, yeah.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah, it's a big one.
interesting. Yeah, that is quite a big can of worms, really, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I did
Well,
see it though. Someone sent it to me on LinkedIn because I'm back on LinkedIn. You know, I got
oh my
banned for
goodness
28
me.
days, which wasn't my fault. It's my security setting on there because I got hacked a while ago. Anyway, I did an identity check. I had to send one of those videos where you video yourself talking,
Oh
and they
yeah,
were
yeah,
satisfied it was me. So I'm back on LinkedIn, which means, as I said last week, I can now watch people argue in the comments and dramas unfold. So I'm back. I've got my little bit of drama back, my little fire engineering
yeah. Oh
soap
yeah.
opera as we call it. Oh, yeah, I'm back.
Yeah, I still am doing I go on LinkedIn every now and again, and then I don't go on LinkedIn again for about a fortnight. So I can't.
Yeah, yeah. I use it very differently these days. I'm sick of seeing recruiters pretend that they care about this or that, or people posting pictures in Dubai and playing paddle. I'm sick of all of that. I don't care about that anymore. That's what Instagram and Facebook are for. But useful to
Um,
see people kick off with one another.
Work Facebook. It's work Facebook.
It is, isn't it?
Um,
It is.
we last week when we recorded, because we talked about so much other stuff, we didn't talk about the fact that it was obviously International Women and Girls Day last week.
Mhm.
Whichever day it was last week, but that was last week, so just celebrating all of us in the industry, which is nice. But it was also National Apprenticeship Week. Now I
Yes,
know
yes, it
you
was.
have a number of apprentices. I'm not quite big enough or quite have the capacity to be able to take on apprentices um, as such at the moment. Who knows
Mhm.
what the future is being? Because obviously, when we started in this podcast, my business was very different to what it is now. Much as your business is very different to what it is now. All
Yeah,
the things that you're doing now that you said you were never going to do, and all the people that I've employed that I said I was never going to do. So life,
yeah,
eh?
yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah, tell me about National Apprenticeship Week.
Mm. The I absolutely love having apprentices in my business. I'm so proud that we get to do it. But that's not a business thing. I'm proud that apprenticeships are a thing. I'm proud of the world that it exists.
Yeah,
Because when I was at school, if if you said I'm going to do an apprenticeship, people thought it's because you're too thick to go to university. Genuinely was the cultural thing when I was at school
oh,
that people would say, I want to be an apprentice joiner or a carpenter. And there was
yeah.
this horrible cultural, it was a bit
It
of a
was always a
dirty word,
physical
an
thing.
apprentice. Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to say, what
And
was it? It was the YTS. It was all the when I was at school. It was all the YTS stuff, the youth training schemes. And it
sure,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh yeah, you don't go to college, you go and join the YTS, and you go and learn to be a brickie, or you go and learn to be a plumber.
Yeah. And I think even when I was at school, many, many years after you'd left school, Jude, I, I'm joking. No, like even when I was at school, I'm going to do an apprenticeship. It was kind of, I'm going to go be paid £2 an hour and I'm going to make the tea and sweep the
Yeah,
yard. There was this feeling about them that was a bit kind of, you can't quite get a job, so do an apprenticeship and one day you'll get a job. Anyway, that just isn't the world anymore. If
no,
I
it's not
could
at all.
if I could have my time again, I would 100% do an apprenticeship, right? Because nowadays, what I've got certainly in my team, and I'll speak from experience, there are 3 people in my team doing apprenticeships at the moment. Degree apprenticeships. They're doing a degree program.
That's
One's
so
doing
cool
business,
though.
and it's awesome. One's business administration. 2 of them are fire engineering, and they get a full degree out of it. But they also have a full job, and they are being paid a full-time salary. They're not on £2 an hour. They are earning a full salary because they're a full employee, and they also have full access to everything they would have sort of when they graduate. So the way
That's
it
so cool.
works and structures is
Yeah.
the so both the guys in my team that are doing them currently, one business admin, one in fire engineering, they they go to university and they work at the same time, but they are neither they're not a student. They are a
No.
full-time member of the team, but also do the studying alongside. And they tend to work on these block weeks. They go away for a week at a time, or they go away for a couple of days and then they come back. They call them hot weeks or pulse weeks, and they come back. And then they have to do what's called off-the-job training. So one day a week, they have to do something that isn't just their day-to-day. They have to be learning. And they have a catch-up with their mentor, which is me for them both. And one of them has another person in the team that mentors. And you just kind of monitor them quite closely. But well, not monitor, work with them quite
Yeah.
closely. but they are absolutely flying, and they're doing so well academically because everything they learn is contextualized at work as well, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So it's a bloody fantastic scheme. And if I had a kid who was 16 and asking what should I do, or if they were asking for my advice, or if I was that age again, I'd totally go for it. Because like, bottom line, you earn a few quid, you know, a decent amount of money that you wouldn't normally be being paid if you're 18. You're doing a job, but you have that kind of protection, I suppose, of
Yeah.
being able to go off to university and ask questions of your peers and your lecturers. But also when you're at work, you've got this constant stream of like new information that your employer might be behind on. Because
Mm.
I am. So the colleague who's doing business administration at the moment comes back to us at work with ideas because she's learning at Manchester, at
Oh,
Manchester
fantastic.
Uni, brand new concepts that are coming through that I'm just behind on because I'm not studying it. So yeah,
That's really
it's
cool.
really, really nice. I've got another two starting in September, both on fire engineering, hopefully. One confirmed, one I'm interviewing for at the moment. And I did a talk last week. I'll touch on this briefly. That
Oh, you went down to Coventry, didn't you?
I was at Coventry, and it was a nice talk. It was the architecture students. They're all final years, so you know, chatting about careers and that. And one of the questions was, in your organisation, what do you look for in entry level and graduate roles? And I thought they're asking this not because they're interested in fire, which is fine. They just want to know, being someone that
For a
interviews
job. Yeah,
new
yeah, yeah.
entry, like what should I look for? And I said to them, you don't have to go into that interview and try to be technical and show off and pretend that you know things that you don't, because the person interviewing you, by the nature of them being in that role, knows more than you do. And the point is they're there to teach you. But the thing that, and they can teach you the technical stuff. Put me in a room with someone for 6 weeks, I'll make them a fire engineer. If it was full time, we could do it, could teach them everything, right? But the thing you can't teach is the enthusiasm, turning up to work, asking questions, being positive,
Yeah.
cheerfulness in the face of adversity, we call it. Sometimes life's hard and sometimes work's difficult. You've got clients you hate, but still stick a face on and be like, right, I'm here to learn and I'm enthusiastic. I said, if you do that, you can't teach that. And I have known people in the past who are fantastic on paper and they've got all the right letters after their name, but they just turn up to the office and they're miserable and they bring the mood down and they don't fit. Like they're just not right. And they certainly don't fit an apprenticeship model, which
Yeah.
is about being enthusiastic and keen. So that's the key thing with apprentices, that if you can find someone who is that and then you're willing to teach them the technical, think about how strong that team will be in 5 years. That's what I think about with my team. I've got this run of trainees and apprentices, but in 5 years, my God, they're going to be a bloody good team. I'll tell you that. They already are, but you know, when
Yeah.
they graduate, imagine being chartered at 24. Imagine having 5 years
Um,
experience and a degree you've not had to pay for. You're 24 years old and
no.
you're chartered. That's the one for me.
Well, that's. I mean, there's a lad I know who went through the apprenticeship scheme for one of my local authorities, and he started there when he was 16. So I've known him literally. I've known him for 8 years since he was like 16. And I still forget he's still only 24 because he's really embraced all the learning and all the training. He's really good.
Yeah, yeah,
And I can still see that enthusiasm now because he's had so long where he's been learning on the job. Even
yeah.
though he's finished his apprenticeship, he still wants to learn on the job because that's what he's used to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That feedback loop never stops. You should be at work, you should be learning, you should be learning.
Yeah, yeah,
If you're learning, it should support your work. So if you can find the trouble is that the hard thing is finding an employer that's set up to do it correctly. Because I am
yeah,
unfortunately aware of some people who do a degree apprenticeship, speaking in the fire world, having taught it and been on this side of it and knowing a lot of people in industry that reach out for these things, mentoring, etc. My employer did it because they thought it was a way of getting a degree for free. And then they don't give me the day a week off the job and they don't give me expenses when I'm up on campus and
yeah,
they
yeah.
don't, unfortunately, and this is one of the big things for employers thinking about doing. It is a massive, and I don't mean this in a negative way whatsoever, I promise. It is a big burden on an employer to take on an apprentice because administratively you have to do a lot. You have to find
Yeah.
time every week to sit with them. You have to give them a day a week. So you're paying them a full-time salary, but they're only an
But only
80%.
4 days.
Because a
Yeah.
day a week they're doing something else. Plus they're away for their study blocks, you're paying expenses, etc. It is a challenge, and I've seen some people be like, oh, if we do the apprenticeship route, you get it for free, right? It's like, yeah, you don't pay tuition. I think the employer pays £1,000 a year or whatever. You pay 10% of it. But unfortunately, administratively and burden-wise, there is a lot there that has to be done. And I've known some employers not set up for it, and the candidate can fail their degree apprenticeship because of something their employer fails to do, even if they pass all the exams. So it's nuanced. It's a bit tricky.
It is, and it's you have to buy in. If you're an employer,
Absolutely.
you have to buy in, because you have to think, I'm not employing this. I'm employing this person to do odd stuff now, but in 5 years' time, this will be this is my session plan. This is how this is what I'm doing. This is the next generation of people that I want to be like I am, or whatever. So and it's hard, because you're right. Some people don't have the understanding that that's what it's there for. It's just like, I mean, you're right. I've heard that it's just free labour, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Or an existing employee that you think they want to do a degree, that's £9,000 a year, or do it this way and it's subsidised 90%, so you only have to pay £1,000, and neglecting the fact that actually there is a load of stuff you have to do. It has to be a learning job, not just a full-time consultancy role. But when it works, and if it's done correctly, and you need the employer to be bought in, you need the employee to be switched on and enjoying it, you need the university to do its part as well. It is a bloody good scheme, and it's creating very, very good people in the workforce who are coming through now. 5 years from now, our industry will be led by these people, I suspect, who have gone through that route, because they're absolute kind of absolutely flying. I should say as well, you tied into International Women and Girls Day. Did you say it was last? All the apprentices in my team, are women and girls, and they're absolutely flying. I think that's going to be a big, big sector of the industry. Because they're just flying through it. They really are.
Oh, I'm really pleased. Well done.
Nice. Yeah.
We got anything else to talk about this week, or are we?
How are we for time? Because I'm sat somewhere else.
Absolutely no idea. Absolutely no idea. I'm going to assume that we're probably okay.
I think we're okay for time, aren't we? I had some stuff to talk about on level 5, but I'm going to do a whole episode at some point on that. But the only thing I'm going to touch on very quickly is I've had a really exciting week or two, because I've been launching a new fire engineering program.
Is this the one you've been telling us about every week for the last 6 weeks?
Yeah, and it's now available. It's now launched, and at some point I'm going to run through all the curriculum on it, because I've got basically I've been writing that at the moment, which is a good chunk of my time. And what I've been trying to do is bring in, like, using the lab and what equipment can we use, and when people sign up, what enrollment stuff do they get, because I'm teaching that for the first time in May.
Good.
So at some point I'm going to carve out a special episode to talk about not just selling my course, but how you build a course, and what decisions go into what do you teach, because I'm in academic mindset at the minute, which is quite nice. So
okay, we can do that at some point.
And at some point I'm going to have to tell you about the Palisades as well, because I still haven't actually told you about that.
We still haven't talked about that, but I assume you've got to probably think about how that's going to work before you
there's so much data collected. I need to go and pull it all down and work out what to do. Off the back of it, I have got 3 research papers in progress, a book pitch that's gone in.
Your article for the International Fire Journal?
Well, it's ended up being 2. So I've got International Firefighter Magazine that we've written an article for, and then there's a piece for the IFE as well to go into a newsletter or a journal, hopefully, as well.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, loads of cool photos and stuff. It's nice, the video one now, because as I'm talking, I can pull up photos of what the Palisades look like now. Because I think after we recorded, when I was on site there a couple of weeks ago, it was like the day after I went to the actual Palisades scene, which was opened up and you could go in. So yeah, we'll share that at some point. Excited to do.
Nice. Cool. All right. Yes, we'll do that at some point. I'm sure at some point we'll do a special on something that I want to talk about as well.
What do you want to talk about, Jude? What you got going on?
I don't know. Maybe timber frame and CLT construction, which seems to be quite a big hot topic at the moment.
I would love to. Do you know, that was another question I got at Coventry the other day from an architecture student. Talk to me more about fire safety of CLT, and it was a great question because it's so pertinent in the industry. So I'd love to learn more about CLT.
Yeah, we might. I feel like there's definitely a lot of things going on with CLT at the moment. So I might see if we can find somebody to one of the cats is one of the cats, the only cat has just come in and just decided to just start meowing, so I do apologize for the interruption there. Thanks, Tolstoy.
Nice.
Well, thanks, Joe, that's been lovely.
Cheers, Jude. I'm going to B&Q. Need to fix a drain pipe.
You need to fix a drain pipe. I need to do a couple of reports and sort out stuff for various different things. I'm in the office tomorrow. It's very exciting. I like on a Sunday not having to drive somewhere on a Sunday evening. Feels like quite a lot of time. That's where I do what I do on a Sunday evening. So now I'm in the office tomorrow. Oh, I've got to meet the accountant. Oh, very disappointing. And then back in next week when we record, or when we record next week's episode number 95, I'll be back in Essex.
Nearly there. Nearly at the hundo. Nearly at the 100th episode.
Nearly. I can't believe that. That's quite remarkable. Yeah, it's nearly 2 years as well, man.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Well done, everybody who's listened to all of them.
Oh, how we've aged. Right, go have a Sunday, Jude. Let's go feed the birds and fix drain pipes and write reports, shall we?
Absolutely. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, everyone.
See you all next week.
See you later.
Bye.